Hi guys, I'm back with my Game Boy collection videos. Today I'm going to be looking at the Game Boy Color. And first of all I have to start off with a bit of an apology for missing out one game from my original Game Boy collection. I've got it mixed up with my other Game Boy Color collection games, but this is a Game Boy Golf, so it's like Nintendo Golf, and obviously it does feature Mario even though it doesn't really mention him as such by name. So technically it's part of the Mario Golf collection, I would probably say. Okay. So, getting back to the Game Boy Color games, I have about just over 20 odd games I think on the Game Boy Color. I haven't counted them, but I'll guess there's probably about over 20. So anyway, let's make a start. Again, give A, and as usual it's an Aliens game, and that is Aliens Vanis Encounter. It's one of the top-down type alien games. It's okay, it's nothing too special. But being an Aliens fan, I have to have it. And also being Buffy the Vampire Slayer fan, I have to have this. This is quite a simple side-scrolling type game. It's not too difficult and it's quite enjoyable. I enjoyed it. Alright, this next game is it's actually shown in the background. Can you guess what that is? Yeah, it looks a bit trippy, a bit like a squirrel on LSD, doesn't it? Yeah, quite disturbing really, that is. But that is Conker's Pocket Tales. So there was a third Conker's game. Okay. Next is moving on to Disney games, and this one's Buzz Lightyear. Just a little bit of damage to the top of the box, but apart from that, it's pretty good. It's got the manual and everything. So I think with Game Boy games, we've got to appreciate that these games are getting so old now, and they've been mostly bought by kids and so forth. So to get them without any damage, it's getting a bit difficult these days. Okay, so sorry, I've got to remember what that is. Obviously that's Extreme Ghostbusters. The only Ghostbusters game I think that came out on the Game Boy Color, based on a TV series, and apparently that's quite a good game. Okay, I talked about my monster games, and here's another one. It's the animated series of Godzilla, and the animated series is actually superior to the actual Godzilla movie in my opinion. So that's Godzilla series, and they brought out a second one, Godzilla the series. What's it? Monster Wars. That's new and sealed. Another Indiana Jones game, Indiana Jones and the Infernal Machine. So this is not one based on the movie, so it's probably exclusive to a system, I imagine. Okay. A little bit of damage to it, but on the whole, pretty good. Okay, I talked about Nintendo Golf, and then there's Mario Golf on the Game Boy Color. Obviously a superior game, but then it's superior technology. But they're all good games actually. And the Mario Golf games, I do recommend highly, even if you don't like golf. The GameCube one's damn good, if I may say so. Okay, there's a new and sealed game, Planet of the Apes. They also brought that out on the Game Boy Advance, and as you probably remember, a lot of the time, depending on their age, they used to bring out games in multiple formats. So if the Game Boy was still selling, but the Game Boy Color was out, they may bring it both Game Boy Color version and original Game Boy version. But more likely what they did when the Game Boy Advance came out, they did a Game Boy Advance version and a Game Boy Color version for a little while. So the Planet of the Apes is one of the games that they brought out on both Game Boy Advance and Game Boy Color. So they're technically two different games, even though it's based on the same genre. Okay, next is another Prince of Persia game. I showed you one which I had on the Game Boy, and this is a Game Boy Color version. Obviously, improved graphics. Now this game is it's sealed, but unfortunately there's been a bit of damage to the top, and what I think they've done is they put some of those packaging strips on it a bit too tight, so that dented the box, which is shocking really that people did that to games, but then they thought these are only toys, so it didn't really matter too much. And that's RoboCop. It's quite a hard game to get a hold of, but as you can see, unfortunately there's a little bit of damage done to the top. How dare they do that to a sealed game, but there you go. But it's still good to have in the collection. This game, it's one of the first Resident Evil games to come out on a portable media before the DS version. It's quite sought after. It goes for a fair price, this does. It's all boxed and complete, and that is Resident Evil Gaiden, or Gaiden, however you pronounce it. Capcom. I haven't had a chance to play it yet. I probably will do it. I'll probably play it on a Electron 5, so it's a bit more playable. But yeah, I don't have too massive expectations for that, but it's still part of the Resident Evil collection, so if you're a Resident Evil fan, I guess you have to pick it up. Being a Muppets fan, Jim Henson Muppets. And a bit of a classic, original Thunderbirds on Game Boy. And then a Star Wars game, Star Wars Episode 1, Obi-Wan's Adventure. Probably not a great game, but then it's Star Wars, so again that's one of the reasons why I pick it up, because it's Star Wars more than anything else really. It's amazing that, you know, if you look at how many games were brought out on Star Wars across PC and all the various consoles, it goes into hundreds, it really does. And so George Lucas pretty much milked it, didn't he, before he sold it off to Disney. And I think Disney will probably end up doing the same thing, although I'm quite pleased with what Disney has done to it so far in terms of, well, look of the film, but also the merchandising in terms of, you know, Star Wars Rebels and stuff in the Disney store. They bring out some reasonably quality stuff actually, so it's not too bad what Disney's doing with it. So I guess it could have been a lot worse, couldn't it? You could have sold it off to someone else who would have exploited it much worse, really. But hey ho, you can talk about Star Wars for years, couldn't you, really? Okay. On the S's again, I've got Snoopy Tennis. Quite a nice game. I do have the Game & Watch version of Snoopy Tennis, all boxed and complete, which I bought a few years back. It's in good condition. It was like £50, which for a Game Boy Advance game boxed and complete, that's not Game Boy Advance, a Game & Watch game boxed and complete, that's bloody good. But it's a Game Boy Color version as well, so that's actually a good game as well. I believe this is the only Simpson game that came on the Game Boy Color, unless I'm mistaken. It could be one of the ones on my want list, but anyway. For Simpsons, the Treehouse of Horror. As you all know, the Treehouse of Horror is a branch off of the normal Simpsons. When there's a Treehouse of Horror episode on the telly, you have to watch it. It is usually hysterical. They are fantastic, the Treehouse of Horror Simpsons spin-off bits. Anyway, okay, The Legend of Zelda, Link's Awakening DX. So I believe I showed Link's Awakening on the Game Boy originally. Well, this is the DX version, you know, improved graphics and so forth, and I think it does play a little bit differently too. Alright, the next two games, they're part of a brother and sister really, part of a pair. I don't know if these were the first ones to do it. Obviously they did it with the Pokemon games. But basically it's The Legend of Zelda Oracle of Seasons. And extending from that is The Legend of Zelda Oracle of Ages. And this one's actually boxed and complete and new, or they're all boxed and complete, but this is actually new and still sealed. So quite a nice pair of games they are. Okay, again, this is a genre I'm interested in. I haven't played them. They don't look too bad actually, and they're probably worth playing on the Retron 5. But who knows? Tomb Raider, Game Boy Color, and then Tomb Raider Curse of the Sword. And on my last video I finished off with Turok, and again I'm finishing off with Turok. So there's Turok Rage Wars, and this one is still sealed, followed by Turok 2, The Seeds of Evil, and last but not least Turok 3, Shadow of Oblivion. Sounds cheerful, doesn't it? Okay. Right everybody, that is my Game Boy Color collection. My next video will be looking at obviously at the Game Boy Advance, and that is a much larger collection of games. So until then, bye!